Chapter 3. It had been 6 months since his son, Ezra, left the house and his beloved wife died. His focus of attention was his daughter, Nihar. Her passion for becoming a police officer grew stronger after people victimized her brother she didn't know. She not only wanted to know them but also wanted to destroy them as they destroyed the life of her brother. In her free time, she took classes in Taekwondo for self-defense. Mr. Bulent made himself busy with social service work. He was trying to fade the memories of Ezra, until that horrible night. He didn't know he had to spend his remaining life in regression. The night was dark, rain was pouring relentlessly. He was restless and had a sense of foreboding when Sally, his friend, and a policeman knocked on his door. Bulent, open the door. Sally hammered the door. Mr. Bulent opened the door and looked at them startled. "Are you the father of Ezra?" policeman asked. Mr. Bulent nodded his head in affirmation. "What happened?" he said in a trembling voice. "A boy has died in a car accident. We identified him with his belongings. Please come with me for confirmation," policeman said. His heart squeezed with pain. He hastily left the house with them when Nihar called him for an umbrella. He looked back at her. "Don't lose hope, Baba. Everything will be fine," Nihar said with hope. They left, and Nihar closed the door and sat along with it crying and praying. Mr. Bulent looked at the mutilated corpse and closed his eyes with pain. "These are his belongings we found," the policeman said. Mr. Bulent held the plastic bag and tried to speak but failed. Sally realized his condition and asked the policeman whether they could take the body. Sally phoned neighbors and called people to arrange the funeral. After hearing the devastating news of his son's death, Mr. Bulent was breathless and momentarily paralyzed. Time lost all meaning as he sat there, memories flooding his mind. The sound of the rain outside was a distant murmur, his world reduced to this one heartbreaking moment. Collecting his son's body was the hardest thing he had ever done, a final act of love and a devastating confrontation with the magnitude of his loss. Days passed quickly as time and tide waited for no one. Nihar joined the CIA as an agent after his father's death. Nihar was a brave, quick-witted, loyal and beautiful agent of the CIA. She was giving her services from the age of 18. She solved cases intelligently. The Directorate of CIA Operations sent a case to the department, and they were discussing handing over this case to Nihar and Amit, who was a transferred agent from another country. Nihar was perplexed to accept or deny the new agent. She didn't know his capabilities, and the case was critical. The director looked at Nihar and said, "Meet him, discuss the case. If you are not satisfied, you can refuse to work with him, but I strongly recommend you to meet before rejecting him." "Okay, I will report you," Nihar said desultory. "This mission is too critical to let internal disagreements interfere. Amit's skills are indispensable here. I understand your concerns, but the decision stands. Amit will lead," the field operation director said firmly. "When you have already decided on each thing, there is no need for my concern," Nihar said. "Look, Nihar, I respect you. You are one of our best agents, but we are in an unprecedented situation. Amit can handle the most dangerous and delicate operations," director said. "Then why do you need me?" Nihar said. "I need you to help him. Together, you and Amit can achieve what neither of you could do alone," director said. "I'll do." Nihar nodded her head. "Thank you, Nihar. Your fidelity is what makes you invaluable to this agency," the director said, and left the meeting room. The next day, a meeting was scheduled for Nihar and Amit. Nihar was on time and studying the case history when Amit entered the meeting room and greeted her. She looked at him. His good looks and confidence made him distinctive. His physical appearance was striking and captivating. Nihar's heart skipped a beat as she pointed at the seat. Amit introduced himself as he opened the file. "I think you have read the case history of Mehmet. He is a two-fold drug and arms smuggler. He is a master at orchestrating complex operations, weaving through the black markets of Central America and beyond. He has never trafficked in human lives. And he has never dealt with terrorists. It is this code that has kept him alive and out of prison for over a decade. But drugs are affecting the young generation. Recently 30 students died by taking a new drug. We have news of the shipment of drugs. The cargo arrives at midnight in the jungle, and it is time to stop him," Ahmet said. Nihar thoughtfully asked, "So what is your plan?" Ahmet pointed to the map, traced a line with his finger, outlining their path, and said, "We will split into 2 teams. Alpha, with you, will approach from the north. cutting through the gorge. Team Bravo will come in from the south, following this ridge. The ridge gives us a vantage point, allowing us to cover Alpha's advance and cut off any escape routes. He paused and looked at her. We know Mehmet is well armed and has a small army. Our goal is to arrest him. Remember, we are facing two enemies, Mehmet and Jungle. We will move out in an hour. Go, get ready. In the jungle, two teams were moving under the supervision of proficient and skilled agents. Nihar commanded her team to move in a circle. She was in the middle. Ahmet headed toward the armed men and ordered them to take position. Mehmet's army was vigilant because this mission was led by himself. Every hoodlum was in his position, updating Mehmet. It was 1 o'clock. The shipment was to arrive at 1:30. They had 30 minutes to set a trap for them. Ahmet and his team started targeting Mehmet's men. They were slithering through the bushes, quietly moving in the direction of an armed man. They hit him on the back of his head and hauled him into the shrubbery. There were 5 minutes left in the shipment of arms to arrive. The team had cleared 6 of Mehmet's men when one of his men had a sense of endangerment. He had seen an agent. He notified Mehmet to flee. Mehmet furiously left his place and tried to escape from the north. Ahmet left the armed men for his team to handle, and he set out in the direction of the port. Mehmet, trying to escape, was noticed by the Alpha team's leader Nihar. She took stealthy footsteps to follow him. Mehmet was trudging toward the woodland. He reached there and stopped. Nihar stopped a little far away from him. He turned and she couldn't believe her eyes. She blinked, thinking. Her breath caught in her throat as the realization hit her. Tears welled up in her eyes, and without thinking, she dropped her gun and ran toward him. The world around her seemed to blur, the rustling leaves into the background as she focused on the one person she never expected to see. But no, it was him. Abi, she exclaimed. Her voice was trembling with shock and overwhelming joy. She threw her arms around him. He was crying and holding her tight. Nihar pulled back slightly and looked at him as if something was off. The sound of shooting and the footsteps of her team indicated an unusual moment. How ... Why? She stammered. She had a flood of questions and was confused. He wiped his eyes to clear the vision. He was hesitant whether to tell her the truth. It is complicated. I've been involved in some things. Things I can't talk about. He finally said. What? Are you in trouble? Who are all these men? Let me help you, she said. It's not what you think, he tried to reassure her, but the words felt hollow. I'm doing what I have to do to survive. Her eyes filled with tears as the reality of the situation sank in. This wasn't the brother she had idolized, the one who had always been her protector. This was someone who had crossed a line, who had become something dark and dangerous. You're involved in something illegal, aren't you? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Are you the right hand of Mehmet? She asked. But deep down she wanted him to turn her thoughts down. Ezra looked away, unable to meet her gaze. I never wanted you to find out like this, Nihar, he admitted, his voice thick with regret. But I'm in a swamp, and there's no easy way out. She was crying. She paced towards him, took out his gun, and said, Shoot me and run away. I will handle the situation. For a moment, Essa was astonished and afraid simultaneously, looking at her little bird who was now becoming a charming and brave agent. It is impossible. I can't shoot you for the sake of my life, he said. I know, she said, and shot her leg. He stared at her blankly. He knew he might lose her. Nihar, he called out softly, his voice carrying the weight of regret and sorrow. I'm sorry, he said, and left as her team was striding. She opened her mouth to reply, but the words caught in her throat. All she could do was shake her head, tears blurring her vision. The pain in her chest deepened as he turned away, the finality of his departure hitting her like a tidal wave. She wanted to scream, to cry, to make him come back. But she knew that was impossible. It was all shattered. She had lost her brother, not to death, but to the choices he had made, and the pain of that loss was something she knew she would carry with her for the rest of her life.